Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining our today's Connecting Czechs webinar. My name is Jan Voska. I work at the Embassy of Czech Republic in Washington, D.C. as a cultural attaché, and it is my great pleasure to welcome all of you here. We created this Connecting Czech series in 2020 during the COVID-19 outbreak, just to stay better in touch with diverse Czech community in the United States. Now, the situation is getting hopefully better, but to stay connected, this is still of crucial importance for every single one of us who is here today. And when I'm saying stay connected with the Czech community, I can hardly think of a better person than our special guest who is here with us today, Deputy Chief of Mission, Zdeněk Beránek. Zdeněk has spent 5 years in this role of Deputy Chief of Mission at the Embassy in Washington, D.C., interacting with multiple political diplomatic partners, as well as with the Czech community in the United States. Zdeněk has traveled to over 45 states, and he advanced the interest of the Czech diaspora in the US. Today, he is here with us, and he is willing and ready to share everything he has learned during his time here, especially about the Czech community. Zdeněk, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you for organizing this, and thank you for the intro. You make me feel important. I appreciate it, and it's actually my honor to be here and to talk to the Czechs living in the U.S. or Americans that claim Czech ancestry. We really appreciate what you are doing for the mutual relationship. So this is also for me an opportunity to thank you for this and for the 5 wonderful years. Many of you actually helped me or accompanied me through them. So I also wanted to thank you for this. But I understand we will start with more serious or some other stuff. You have some questions you wanted to ask. So and so I will have more opportunities to thank everyone later.
That's correct. Thank you so much, Zdeněk, and really thank you for accepting our invitation. I promise I will make it very interactive discussion. However, they will also depend up to you. So please, you can already start preparing your questions. You will have a chance to ask them either in the chat or just jump into the meeting in the Q&A part that I hope will be at least 50% of the meeting. So I am already starting with some housekeeping rules. This is a 1 hour long discussion. I will kick us off by starting a few questions. Then it will be really your time. So take your opportunity. We are recording this meeting just to also give others who cannot make it today chance to see it later. I guess that's it. Please stay muted unless you are speaking. I wish you joyful discussion and thank you again for joining us. And with this, that leads me to questions, Zdeněk. So let's just start with it. I have already mentioned that you have been Deputy Chief of Mission at the Czech Embassy for 5 years. And that means that you had unique opportunity to be in touch with the Czech community in the United States. What kind of emotions and impressions have encounters with the Czech community here left on you?
No, that's a very good question. The encounter with Czech community in the US was something I was really looking forward to when I came here in 2016, and so I think first encounter really happened, if I don't count Washington, where also we have very vibrant Czech community, but I mean outside of Washington, it took me just a couple of weeks to have a first encounter, and frankly speaking, my first emotion was intimidation. I really felt intimidated by how much actually I ignored about all this, about how many Czechs or how many Americans of Czech ancestry actually live here, how diverse, how vibrant, and how incredible this group of people actually is. And frankly speaking, I am historian by training, so I supposed to know something about it. But still, I was quite ignorant about many aspects of this. So you can imagine how an average Czech, how much they know or don't know about Americans of Czech ancestry or Czechs living in America. So this this is something we will probably talk about it later. This is something we should definitely change. This is something where there is a big room for improvement. But this was definitely my first feeling. Wow, like I thought I knew a lot, but I actually did not. And then, I was really moved by the genuine love and passion those people have for their old country. Many of them actually never seen the old country, but they still love it. They love the traditions, they love the culture, and that's just, it was really emotional to see that, and how much they are doing in their free time, very often spending their own money for the sake of promoting the relationship and also helping the local community, enriching the local community with the Czech culture and cuisine, for instance, and other activities. So yes, it was all very positive feelings in a way.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for being so honest about these feelings. And I can attest to it. I started here 1 year ago, and the library behind me is just full of books about Czech heritage in the United States. I realized how little do I know about it. I have another question, Zdeněk. Czech Republic has compatriots all over the world. However, it is often said that our community here is in a way special. Why or how is that? And how can it help in our relations with the United States?
I think it is indeed special. I fully agree with this statement. And I think the reason, first, it's the size. It's the size of the community. It's like in last census in 2010, 1.8 million Americans claimed in one way or another Czech ancestry, Czech heritage. And we should underline that this question in the census is not mandatory. You don't have to answer it if you don't want to. And still 1.8 million people claim Czech or Czechoslovak heritage, which is quite incredible. So the size definitely makes it unique and extremely important. You basically have 1/6 of the whole Czech population actually living in the US. Sorry, I'm not very good at math, but it's a lot, right? We have 10 million people living in the Czech Republic, and you have almost 2 living in America. So that's something. And then, of course, the combination of US being a major global power, the single largest world economy. If you have such a group of people living in this place, in this context, that they are important because they can achieve a lot on individual basis. That you have many businessmen, you have many people, active in academia or culture in this context, like living in the US and having special bond with the Czech Republic. They are important for us. That's pretty clear. And also whatever happens in America is potentially very visible. So even though I said many people ignore how important, vibrant, and interesting the Czech community here in the US is, it's still relatively visible compared to others. So that makes it also very important. So individuals can play a very important role, but also in the unique context of the American political system, diasporas in general can also achieve a lot. And if we have time, we can talk about it more in detail. Czechs are not particularly good at this. If you compare Czechs to Cubans, for instance, right, or Jewish population in the US, or Irish or Portuguese, and many others, I think I'm not blaming anyone. I can blame myself. We might be actually doing more in this respect, and we are trying, but I think it's caused by geography. Czechs are largely scattered in areas that are not politically so important. You have to be actually located in a swing state to make a difference, like in Florida. We don't have that. We don't have that actually. But I think we can achieve more. We can be more active on this front. We can maybe be more active in local, regional, or state level politics. But I mean, politics is not everything. You know, economy and public relation, public diplomacy, that matters a lot, and a lot can be achieved here in this respect.
Thank you. Thank you for, this was a window to political geography, and very interesting one. And when you mentioned United States and you mentioned US public, speaking about the Czech community, how is it perceived here by the US public? How do Americans think about us?
To what I hear, it's largely positive. Like all around the US, wherever I went, I never heard anything negative. On the other hand, very often the very existence can be of Americans of Czech ancestry can be ignored or underestimated. That figure I like to mention a lot, 1.8 million. Almost no one believes that. Whenever I mention it to an American, they're like, no, it cannot be right. Something must be wrong about that figure. But it's not, it's actually an accurate number. But people just don't believe that because they don't hear that often about Americans of Czech ancestry. Very often I met Americans of Czech ancestry, you know, in one capacity, where they were actually actively promoting Czech culture. Then I met them in a different context with different people around them, and nobody knew in that context that the person was actually Czech. That's quite interesting. I mean, again, nothing wrong about it, but it's just this is our problem. Maybe we should be more. We deserve to be more visible, but we are not. So, but otherwise, there is no. I haven't really noticed any negative feeling about Czechs. It was largely positive. The Americans like the culture, they like the food, they like the story, they like the story of the Czech people. Almost everyone knows Václav Havel, and they know the story of our struggle for freedom and democracy. They know that we are allied country fighting even now in the world for freedom and democracy together with the Americans. So there is positive view, but very often there is, you know, this ignorance about the fact that there is so many of us here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the Czechs here, they deserve to be visible because of so many contributions they made. So I want to just ask you, in your view and your experience, how has the Czech community in the US contributed to the growth of America and even its economy and the culture?
I think this is a great question, and I think humbly, I think we have, if I can say we, because I feel being part of it, at least temporarily, we have contributed tremendously. I think we are actually shareholders in this project, and it might sound weird from a Czech diplomat saying that, but this is one aspect that I really love and admire about this country, about the United States. You can be a loyal and proud American, while in the same time, you can be proud and loyal Czech. You can proudly claim your heritage, and there is no contradiction in that. In some countries, I can imagine you know the government would be suspicious, like, oh, this guy he's claiming another country's heritage. So is he truly a loyal citizen? Nobody's asking this question here in the United States, which is great. So you can be proud that your Czech ancestors helped to build this country, and there is no contradiction in that. And so I am equally proud, and I think Czechs have done a lot here. Czechs would colonize the frontier in the Midwest. I see our honorary consul from Texas here being with us, so he might confirm that observation. But I think at one point in 19th century, Czechs would be the 4th or 5th largest ethnic community in Texas. It shows you how even third. It shows you how important they were in building that state, that very important state. And similarly, Czechs were important in colonizing and building other states, not only in the Midwest. And then maybe to make it, to give you some concrete examples, we can even go way before the traditional immigration started from Central Europe. We can go to 1600s. Just behind me, you can see a map. First map ever of Chesapeake Bay, extremely important area and in the Washington, D.C. region. And this map was actually drawn by Augustin Hermann, a Czech immigrant who came to what would later become America or United States in 1600s. And then you have Moravian Brethren in Pennsylvania, building schools and universities, translating Bible into Native American languages. Then you have people like Ray Kroc. Ray Kroc, we would pronounce it actually Ray Kroc. He's the founder of McDonald's. You have Eugene Cernan, the last man on the moon. And then, Jan, do you know the song? Maybe you're too young, but do you know the song Eye of the Tiger?
Of course.
Composed by Jim Patrick, born in Berwyn, Chicago, another American of Czech ancestry. So you have many examples like that. So I think Czechs are stakeholders in this unique project called the United States, and they should be even more proud about it. They should be even more vocal about it.
Mm-hmm. Wow, thank you. You have an excellent knowledge about the history of you are a historian by training, and it's visible. So before I will follow up with perhaps last question or last two questions from my side, I already want to remind you that you should get ready with your questions. I will give you a chance very soon. You can either write them in the chat, or if you look right screen of your Zoom, you can also raise your hand. We are 44 of us here, so it will be easier if you can raise hand, just so I know who is planning to ask a question. If not, we will still manage. So after this question, the floor will be yours, I promise. I want to end at least this intro part, Zdeněk, on a lighter note, and I'm just curious if you can recall any memorable moments from your encounter with Czech community, but also with the Czech associations. You have been a very active member of local association in Washington, D.C., and your wife too, so I believe there will be some stories to share.
There's actually too many, so it's very hard to pick some of them. They're not actually stories, just maybe memories, and you said lighter note, but I cannot help but mentioning the Czech cemeteries, the one in Chicago, the Czech National Cemetery in Chicago, is the visit of that place. It will always be in my memory. It's such a strong experience. It's a chronicle of Czech presence in the US. You see people there buried that fought in the Civil War in 1860s. They came from Czech Kingdom, or from what is now Czech Republic. They would fight in this war. It shows you how old the Czech presence is in the United States. And then I went to Baltimore to see another Czech national cemetery. And maybe it sounds weird, but I found after like 1 hour of seeking, I found a grave of a person sharing the same family name. His name was Beránek. He fought in Second World War as a pilot in the US Air Force. So it shows you how loyal American he was. He fought for the cause of freedom in the world. And then he ended up being buried at the Czech National Cemetery. So this just was a nice example of how you can be loyal American and even fight in a war for this country. But then you actually rest with other Czechs at the Baltimore National Cemetery. But trying to end on a lighter note, my first visit to Texas, that was really unique. Whoever ever visited Texas or the Midwest, you must have noticed that they sell kolache. They call it kolache. Very often they don't even know it's a Czech invention, but they have really special ones in Texas, kolache with jalapenos. And that's truly a great melange of multiple cultures. I really love that because I love kolache and I also love Mexican cuisine, especially jalapenos. So it was a great combination. And so many stories. Some of them are better shared over a beer, not over Zoom.
Thank you. Well, thank you for mentioning kolache with jalapenos. Now I definitely have to make a business trip down to Texas. In the meantime, I see that we had a very interesting comment in the chat section. Maria Vorel, and thank you for your suggestion. She says, I suggest the embassy should do Zooms of Czech history of persons in the US. So we are taking this suggestion. Thank you so much. And I think this might be the first start or little start of these traditions when we are speaking about Czech heritage and ancestry in the US. So, dear guests, I would like to see if there is someone right now who is willing to ask a question and take the floor. Maria is raising hand. So Maria, please unmute yourself and the floor is yours.
Well, thank you for this presentation. I was struck by your comment that there isn't a Czech community identified in the US like we have. Cuban is a great example, right? And part of it, I suspect, is because we're all so spread out. But I can honestly say to you, I mean, my dad escaped from Czechoslovakia, came here in the 50s. And for me, it's always been isolated. I don't know other Czech people specifically, right? And so, and I have to say, in all honesty, I've never thought to use the embassy as a way to create anything or have knowledge. And so how do we build a Czech community? And I tell you, if we are spread out, something like Zoom is a great way to link people all across the country, you know, that identify as having Czech heritage. But so a few things just from what you're saying would be great for you guys to facilitate. Like, for instance, where I didn't know we had terrific Czechs. I live in Northern Virginia. I didn't know there was a Czech cemetery in Baltimore. That I would go see that if I had known that was there. Or Chicago, I've been there many times on business. The only thing I do is I look up whenever I go to another town to see if there are Czech restaurants, just in case, right? And there usually are not, but that would be another great thing if you guys would list, hey, Czech restaurants wherever in the US, right? Because people then could know there's a place to look at on your website, maybe that here's a good Czech restaurant in this town. So especially, I mean, I don't know that I can handle the Texas version, but whatever. The other thing that, you know, when I'm always encouraging friends to go visit the Czech Republic, but if you had a little thing written for Americans that are not of Czech heritage to understand the Czech Republic, that would be a good resource for me to give out to my friends that I'm trying to encourage to go to the Czech. And I've been there a lot. I was there in the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. The government here sent me over when the Czech Republic was being established after the fall of the communists. So I've been very engaged, but so I know more than others might, but still, if you all had something that would be useful for tourists that are Americans that are going over there, that would be helpful. And yeah, those are just a couple of things that just jump out at me. But the bottom line being is, how do we create a Czech community? It would be great.
Thank you. Zdeněk, if you don't mind, just before I give it over to you to answer this interesting question, I just want to mention one thing. Great suggestions, Maria. We also, apart from the Connecting Czech series, we have a Connecting Czechs newsletter. It goes out once, twice, depends. Usually it was March, April, then we had something. And so it's usually once a month. It's an online newsletter. And I think that we can, if there is someone here who is not on the list and wants to be there, after we send you the link for the recording of the discussion, we will also send you a subscribe link for the newsletter, just so you have it. And the last comment about the materials, yes, we do have them. It happens to us that people are asking for some educational booklets of Czech Republic, and we do send them out. So this is also possible. I end here, and Zdeněk, if you have anything to add.
Oh, thank you, Maria. Thank you for joining us today and for your very good observation. I actually agree. These are brilliant ideas, and Jan, as he mentioned, Jan and his department at the embassy, they are being more and more active on this front. Social media, they are helping us a lot. So you can just start by following the embassy profile on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. There are many others. Czech Center in New York, but many other grassroots organizations. By mentioning some, I don't want to, insult anyone that I'm not going to mention. But American Friends of the Czech Republic, they have great social media operations. Sokol organizations, Czech schools, they are very active on social media, and they are also very active in physical space in the areas where they operate. This is also something we are trying to encourage and support. Czech Republic, as a relatively small country, has limited means, but we are providing grants and other forms of support to the local organizations. So we hear you. We think it's important to help Czechs to be connected among themselves, but also with their old country and its government even. So yes, we are trying to do more. On the other hand, we cannot really compensate for the grassroots efforts that will always be. And this is another great thing about the United States. This will always be the backbone of the activities. But the embassy and the Czech government will always try to be helpful and support all those grassroots efforts.
Thank you. I saw in the chat, I saw a comment from Milena Harvey. She says, "Good morning. I just found out about this presentation yesterday. Would it be possible to announce the event like this earlier, so we have time to share with larger audience?" Well, this is something what we are discussing right now. It's Zoom offers us to, of course, connect with all of you from different places, and it's sadly, of course, depends what channels are you following, because we have been announcing this, I think, 2 weeks before on some social media channels, and then doing reminders. So we are always trying to get the information to you as soon as possible, and then it always depends. So we will always try hard, and we are happy that you made your way here. I have some other questions in the chat, but before I read them out loud, is there someone who wants to ask a question in person? I will give him or her the floor. I see.
I would. Mila Shashkova-Pierce. I have a question. Some 20, 30 years, the schools in Czech schools did mention the seminal role that American Czechs and Slovaks played in the formation of Czechoslovakia, obviously because of the communist legacy. But is it now being included in the teaching material? perhaps that would involve the youngsters in more willing collaboration and cooperation and contacts with the Czech-American communities. I'm talking about the Czech youngsters growing up in the Czech Republic. And that is for Mr. Beránek.
No, it's an amazing question, but I think I already mentioned in general how much people in Czech Republic ignore what their compatriots in the United States have achieved. It's not being hidden from them anymore actively. It's not being kept secret anymore, but it's just not part of the,
Curriculum,
common knowledge or even curriculum. So as Jan mentioned, there is many books, articles. I think what should be done is to spread his knowledge in the audiovisual media, maybe a documentary or feature film. That would definitely help. But of course, this is something that the government can hardly do. But I can imagine it would be supported.
I know that the public TV, PBS in America at this point is trying to show the role of Czech-American feminists and their influence on the international feminist movement. I think that perhaps I or somebody else should contact the Czech TV because Czech TV and Czech radio, public veřejnoprávní rádio, že? Nebo rozhlas, because if Americans are willing to make such a program, it should be really done from the Czech territory, I think, because when you think about Zeman and other people who, Plamínková, who influenced Lady Astor and who collaborated with other feminists based, actually, they departed from the Czech volnomyšlenkáři, the free thinkers on the American soil. This should be perhaps kind of put forward to the Czech public, Czech-speaking public in the Czech Republic, if even the world is interested in it.
I fully agree.
Yeah, thank you.
And I can imagine it would be supported in one form or another by not only by the Czech embassy, but by many of you. I can imagine, as I know you, I'm sure you would be helpful if any such project is getting
from the Czech side. I think that the Czech side should be somehow involved.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Okay, good. I just hope that you do have contacts and you could quip about it, at any opportunity you will get.
We cannot, as Czech government, we cannot really task the media, either the public ones or the private ones. But I can share with you that in my private conversations with Czech journalists, I mentioned this idea many times, and there was interest. I think, like general interest. I think, as I mentioned, my own intimidation at the very beginning. I think this might be the problem because it's such a vast project, to map all Czech diaspora and its history. And I think it makes people worried whether they would be up to that task. But it's not an issue.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. I wanted also to mention that we have a reading circle in Nebraska from Lincoln. It's the organization of Lincoln Czechs. And we will have next Tuesday from 6:30 to about 8. We will have Jan Kubišta, who will talk about Shabbat, or Sabbat, the important Czech a politician from the 30s and 40s that hailed from Chicago. So if anybody wants to join, you're welcome. You can just address me. I will give you the Zoom address. You can join us next Tuesday at 6:30 Central Time, Central US time.
Thank you, Mila. I think that you opened interesting question also with Zdeněk about what the embassy can do or the Czech government can do and can't do. And I see that Maria Zemanková also had a comment or a question in the chat, and it's the restaurant comment. We already spoke about how important for our culture and heritage it is to have Czech restaurants, and there was one in Washington DC, Bistro Bohem, that closed due to COVID-19 pandemic. She says, it was great place to meet other Czechs and see Czech movies, hold receptions and other things. I contacted the embassy about saving the cultural outpost, but apparently the Czech embassy cannot do this. What is possible in that regard?
For example, you clearly contacted lots of Czech people, right, just to be present at this webinar. I don't have those email addresses. So if maybe it is in auspices of the Czech embassy to start some kind of a campaign, I think that quite a few people actually would be interested in resurrecting the Bistro Bohem or some other culture outpost, because I think it's, as you mentioned, the food, beer, and we had several webinars on, let's say, Czech wines. It would be so wonderful to be able to have a place where you can take friends who are not Czech or take other Czech friends. And so I really don't know what could be done.
That's a good question. It's actually rather complicated. Like you cannot really intervene on behalf of a private business. Yeah. On the other hand, of course, we are aware of the important role those places can play in areas like, and there are actually many of them in Washington. There used to be two at one point, and they can be, as you mentioned, very important place for meetings among Czechs. So what we did, we would provide some sort of like soft support. We would do events together. We would encourage people to go there for our own events. So that's possible. That's what we can do. But unfortunately, this particular case of Bistro Bohem, the restaurant just hasn't survived the COVID pandemic. There was nothing that could have been done about it.
But like helping to contact other Czechs who might be willing to chip in, I mean, I think that several people would be willing to chip in financially to get either the Bistro Bohem or other venue get started, because I think it really is important to have a Czech restaurant as a cultural outpost, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. And wherever Czech Republic has a physical presence in the US, being it New York, Washington, Chicago, Los Angeles, those local consulates or embassies will always cooperate with local restaurants, of course, within the boundaries, the legal boundaries. But anyone who wants to invest in hospitality business of this kind can be sure that the proximity of an embassy or consulate will be an asset. But of course, there are certain limits which we cannot cross. If somebody opens a restaurant, a Czech restaurant in Washington again, I'm sure that the embassy will be interested in cooperation, as it was the case with Bistro Bohem.
And
in other words, you cannot really send an email message to whoever subscribes to the Czech embassy's mailing list and say, hey, you guys, if you are interested in helping, contact whoever.
I might just chip into this. I would say the pandemic, of course, was and still is a terrible thing. However, if it brought us something, especially in the large territory of the United States, it made us more connected, because before, when all of you and all of us had mostly in-person events, we in DC, or let's say someone in North Carolina, didn't really have to be interested in what's going on in California, correct? But right now, many of you are coming from different places, and online programs really made us more connected and more aware that we can as you say, chip in. The Connecting Czechs newsletter that we will share the link with you to is here for precisely that reason. And I think Zdeněk said it very well. We cannot necessarily initiate some campaign. However, if from grassroots, if from you, there is initiative, I think in Connecting Czechs, this can definitely get a space.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. I see that we are getting more and more questions. I need to study them myself. So is there someone who wants to ask a question now live in person? Okay, I will.
I have a very quick comment. I wanted just to inform other people. The Bohemian Cafe in Omaha also was discontinued. So were the 2 Sokol halls in Omaha. So there is, the last Sokol hall was also the victim of the pandemics. So it is a dire situation, I think, that we should be aware of and see how we can help those spaces of Czechness in American towns.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Just a quick reaction. I'm so sorry to hear that, because I was in the Bohemian Cafe in Omaha last summer.
Yeah, it's closed now.
It was I'm so sorry to hear that. It was a wonderful place.
Yeah, and the Sokol Hall across the street is also now closed, sold.
What we are doing and what can definitely help, and it's perfectly legitimate. We are promoting, as Czech embassy, we are promoting Czech beer, not only the final product, but we are promoting the technology, the know-how, and the ingredients. And our analysis shows that Czech beer is more and more, being preferred by American consumers. So I think this trend, which is being actively supported by us, can help anyone who would be willing to start a business in opening up a bar or restaurant.
Yeah, and we will have the beer fest now in Nebraska, if you know, with your collaboration and with Petri Czechs collaboration.
This is one example.
Yeah, thank you.
I see there is an interesting comment in the chat from Brian Blanicek. He says, historically, the story of Czechs in Texas has been a story of determined assimilation in the US, even as they have maintained many of their cultural traditions. And he hopes that today's program is something that can provide foundation for ongoing contemporary dialogue. So thank you for that, Brian. I don't want to put you on the spot if you have anything to add to it, but this is a nice feedback. Thank you. I see there is there is Susanna Hensley also. She says, I would like to remind everyone of Švejkaton event, of very successful Švejkaton event on Zoom. It was very successful internationally. I remember we also promoted the Švejkaton in Connecting Czech. So this is something what we can certainly do. We have last 10 minutes. I have some nice closing question for Zdeněk, because there's something what needs to be asked. But before that, I am of course open to your questions, but there is something that from everything what we are talking about is coming to me still back and back. Zdeněk, what is the future of Czech community in the United States?
I'm not sure I'm the one that is going to be able to answer this, but I think there's many reasons to be optimistic. I think Czechs are being, or Americans of Czech ancestry are being actually more and more proud about that fact. So they are becoming more active and more visible. So that's one. That's very optimistic. Even though we see some restaurants being closed, I think it's just a temporary phenomenon caused by COVID. I think we will overcome this. And of course, being in Washington, you follow all those geostrategical debates about relationship between the United States and Europe. whether they will grow closer or whether they will rather grow further apart. I think the former is more likely, but still, America is facing multiple challenges. There might be sometimes different than those challenges Europe is facing. So keeping those two entities as close as possible, that might be a task for all European diasporas in the United States. Just by being vocal about the fact that your ancestors actually helped to build this country, and then Europe is part of the American identity. But even mentioning that, even being vocal about this, that can help, you know, for average American to understand how important Europe is for the United States in this difficult international situation we are currently in, with countries like Russia or China threatening the current law-based international order. I think Europe and America has to be even more coordinated than in the past, and directly or indirectly, you can all play a role in that. Sorry, it maybe sounds too boring, too political, but I hope it makes sense.
Thank you, Zdeněk. I definitely think it makes sense, and what also makes sense, we have so many great suggestions from you in the chat for different resources. I think that the easiest and most user-friendly for you is if we gather all of what you have shared with us, different links, and we will also share it with you once we share the link for the recording of today's discussion. So don't worry, we will share all of that, including some great mentions of events. So I wanna see there are, of course, so many of you who are saying thank you to Zdeněk for his achievements in the role of Deputy Chief of Mission. Before I will ask him my last question, I want to see if there is someone who would like to ask Zdeněk maybe last question from the participants.
Hi, good morning. Sorry, I'm definitely not camera ready. My name is Lila Stelick-Berry, and I'm from Brookfield, Illinois, which is kind of in the heart of has like the Sokol organization and has an annual Czech-Slovak picnic, and grew up going to Bohemian National Cemetery. And this is, you know, a big part of the culture in this part of Illinois, which I'm very proud of. One thing that's always struck me about Czech-American cultures and Czech history is a focus on social justice, a focus on freedom, liberty, and just as Mr. Beránek mentioned, the countering of Russian disinformation. You know, I was wondering what the Czech perspective is on kind of the transformation and like changes and protests that we've seen globally about inequities exposed by COVID, about Black Lives Matter, about calls for police accountability that are also coming in the Czech Republic. And so I was just curious, like how you see kind of the human rights and like social justice connections that we share between the United States, Czech Americans in particular, but not only, and Czech Republic today. Thank you.
This is an extremely complex question, actually. I think, yes, Czech Republic is part of the Western community of nations. So we very often face similar challenges, analogical challenges. I think some of them might be unique, like you mentioned, Black Lives Matter and racial justice, social justice. Of course, these are universal problems, but they happen in a specific context of any given country, and we have slightly different historical experience. So they are not exactly, those issues are not exactly being approached in the same way in the Czech Republic, but they can inspire our own debate about human rights and social justice. And unfortunately, very often those issues are entering the public domain with all the controversies they already are entangled with here in the United States. So basically, the moment Black Lives Matter movement started in the US, you already had debate about that phenomenon in the Czech Republic, and it was politically extremely sensitive and tense debate. So it's very often quite unfortunate that those issues are being so much politicized, and it's maybe even worse in the Czech context, as people very often ignore the American context. So they don't get it right very often. So those issues are being misinterpreted. But maybe to answer your question from a different angle, I think the whole West is actually facing internal challenges that can be very different depending on the context of any given country. But we are also facing external challenges, and we have, and they are the same pretty much everywhere, which is the Chinese and Russian malign influence. That's what we have to definitely counter and face together. And it's happening. Like we are basically discussing this with the US government on a daily basis. So that's encouraging, actually.
Thank you, Zdeněk. Dear participants, Zdeněk, we are nearing the end, and it would be rude from me not to give a chance to Zdeněk, who is almost finishing his tour in the US. Last word when it comes to maybe sharing some special message with you as a Czech compatriots. You can see that he is very much involved with the Czech community, and he met some of you in person. So Zdeněk, if I ask you, is there any message you would like to share with us today?
Thank you for giving me this opportunity, Jan. As I mentioned at the beginning, I wanted to use this meeting today to thank you, everyone. I know many of you. I met many of you in person, and those meetings will always be, in my memory, very close to my heart. And they made my stay and my work in this country much easier, much nicer experience. And but it's not about me. You have been helping the Czech government, many of you, for so many years. So I wanted to thank you for that. I cannot it's physically impossible to mention everyone, but I saw we have a bunch of honorary consuls with us today. So I wanted to thank you all, because you are just a great group of people. And whenever I visited you, I saw how important role you play in the given community or given state where you operate. So you are doing extremely important job, and you do it, and I have to underline this, you do it in your free time. So you could be laying on a beach enjoying a drink, and instead you are working for Czech-American relationship. So we really appreciate that. I would like to mention others. I would like to mention Sokol organizations all around the US. I would like to mention AFOCR, the American Friends of the Czech Republic, the Society for SVU. How do we translate that? Society for Arts and Sciences, sorry. And all other local and regional organizations. There is so many of them. There are museums. There are Czech schools, and many other organizations and individuals that have been doing, so much for a common cause. So thank you for that, and I hope we will stay in contact even after my departure.
Thank you very much, Zdeněk, and thank you so much for advancing the interests of Czech community in the United States during your time here. And thank you so much to everyone who joined us today, because you are that community, and you are those who are advancing the interests of us here too. So thank you so much, and please stay connected, stay in touch. Have a great day.